And we are back on this Friday edition of InfoWars Nightly News. Now, this story is focused here in Austin, Texas, where this television show and my radio show originates from. But what's happening here is being duplicated, not just here in Austin or in the United States, but all over the world. Environmental treasures are being taken over by corporations and by governments. And many times they're done in the name of the environment. So you have a counterfeit environmental movement that says carbon dioxide is evil. You need to pay a global government for human development, but let's not worry about cross-species genetic engineering that in all the studies kills the lab animals deader than a hammer. Let's not worry about overfishing or clear cutting. Let's only worry about carbon dioxide. And here in Austin, where I live, they've shut down several of the power plants. The prices are going way up. Also, insiders who are allowed to keep operating make giant profits. And this has become a big national issue. While China and India and others can totally develop with dirty systems, we can't even have clean systems. And they block a lot of the renewable energy systems and only give us systems that don't really work. This is the post-industrial world that we're talking about, where the establishment admits they don't want us to move into the next wave of technology. They want to suppress us with old technologies while claiming that they are environmental stewards of the earth. The Rockefeller Foundation, over 100 years ago, brags about this. Now, it's rated as the #1 pool in Texas. It is a natural spring-fed pool that comes out of the Edwards Aquifer. It looks like the Caribbean. You can see shots there just from my little digital camera. It's even better in real high def. I just shot that on my little underwater camera. And it does not do it justice. And it's got the endangered Barton Springs salamander in it. It's got 20-pound bass in it. It is simply amazing. And there are some small sinkholes over on the side of the pool where they divert the Barton creek around it. There are some small sinkholes where there are a few dozen small holes inside of the system they built in the 40s, the sidewalk. Now, literally, there's a city proposal, and I have it here in my stack I'm going to be showing you later, that admits for a few $100,000 they could go in and inject concrete in and absolutely fix the holes that are causing some of the lawn to go in and some of the creek water to get in to the spring. Now, naturally, the creek always flowed right over the spring into the Colorado River. And there's the American eel that's saltwater but comes and lives part of the life in freshwater. It lives there. It is an oasis. I've been all over the Caribbean. I've been to Central America. I've been to oceans all over. And believe me, it is world class. #1 in Texas. Many groups rate it in the top 3 or 4 in the country. It's in the top 20 in the world. So it's an amazing freshwater pool. And I tell you, it's rejuvenating. It really is the soul of Austin. It's one of the best things, if not the best thing, in Austin. So you're asking, watching this around the country and the world, why are we talking about this? Well, multifold. The pool has been used to take people's private property in the name of protecting the recharge zone. But instead, they turn around and then develop it for select insiders. So again, it's a great example of how they use environmentalism to power grab and then don't protect the pool. But now they've got a $2.9 million program. It was going to be over $6 million. And our guest we're going to be talking to in a moment helped fight this with a lawyer. And he doesn't call himself an expert, but he's been going to the pool for over 20 years. And I learned a lot from him, went and checked it out, and found out it was very accurate. So he told us where to look. He's got a lot of insiders inside the city that blow the whistle to him. I'll just leave it at that. And we found their info to be invaluable. I've now talked to city insiders that confirm what he said. I'm going to just leave it at that as well, so we don't let you know basically who they are here in this age of persecuting people that blow the whistle. But they're senior. The plan they've got for the pool, scientists believe, will kill salamanders. But they don't care. And they've got Friends of Barton Springs that's kind of like a useful idiot cult that just supports whatever they say. It's the Agenda 21 Delphi technique, like we showed you last week, where you go to these Agenda 21 meetings and they go, you have 5 or 6 options, and then you've got to go with their options. There's no other option. And so again, by learning from this, we learn how they do this on so many other fronts. When they gave tax incentives to build Formula One on the aquifer and on a part of another aquifer, they called it environmental to cut down all the trees. They call it environmental. They want to cut the trees down at Barton Springs. I have that in the news. They say that's for the earth. So see, cutting trees down is for the earth now. So it's amazing what's going on in this Matrix-like 1984 world where the very developers that are destroying the environment are the ones now running the movement. So I'm giving you some basic backgrounds here. I want to go to some clips that Darren McBreen put together of historical photos. Close to 500 years ago, Spanish explorers came through. The Springs were an extremely sacred site to multiple Native American groups who had a truce not to war with each other in the area. The Spanish thought it was very, very important. And then I guess about 100 years ago, they began to dam up part of it so it had some deeper areas. It's up to 20 feet deep in some areas, so that people could enjoy it. And, of course, it's part of a beautiful park that was donated by an Austinite, a Texan, Zilker Park. They've now announced they're going to start charging $5 to park there. They want to pave the other dirt areas where people park. They want to gentrify it, fancify it, as my guest calls it, and take it over. And here's the telltale sign. 2 years ago, they wanted to shut it down for basically 11 months. People got mad. They backed off. This time, even when we had their own documents, they were getting ready to shut it down this winter and spring, they would lie and say they weren't, to my face. Then they announced they're shutting it in a month. Now they're saying, well, maybe earlier. So we're seeing all the telltale signs of a takeover, and they're saying, we're not going to tell you which one of the 4 or 5 plans, the master plan, we're going to engage in. Once it's closed, we're going to tell you. So there's the basic background. I want to play you a clip of one of the local well-meaning environmentalists out there, because they're not the ones getting the spoils. When Rob Dew was out there talking to locals about them shutting it down, they'd say, well, we're told it's not being shut down. Again, right until we forced them to admit it, they wouldn't even admit this till last week. And this is the same programs they use at every level. And this young lady's like, yeah, we're taking the land around Austin. They force you to sell for pennies on the dollar. But don't worry, it's to save the salamander. And Rob Dew goes, yeah, but are you building on that? And they go, oh, yeah, shopping malls, golf courses. And again, they're not paying the people what they should for the land. They're forcing them to sell it. They use taxpayer money, and then insiders take that and literally have their friends come in, and they give them waivers to build on it. This is a giant crime being committed, and Austin is the UN model of this. As the report showed you last week, they say we're the model. What they're doing to us here is how they're going to enslave you in your area. So we're going to break that down in a moment, but here's a clip Rob Dew got of the well-meaning, useful idiot, saying, oh, yeah, we're taking all this land. This is just the latest phase. We're talking hundreds of thousands of acres total now. But then developing it. That's the great part about it. It'd be one thing if they took it and paid rightful price for it and made huge parks. No, they build on it. Here it is.
Everything in green is the protected area. So you see there's not really much protected areas 15 years ago. 2 years ago, this is the work that we did. All this land was purchased by cities or by the city of Austin or the county, and we use our funds and our political clout to encourage the city to purchase these lands for protection.
Has any of that been developed on?
Yes. So this does not mean there's no development. What it means is that the development is done in a sustainable and ecologically friendly way.
Which means they all selectively, the ones that control this and the development banks, the Rockefeller Foundation, as we reported, has 40 groups in Austin and areas surrounding. They're taking everything over. Now, we're going to be going over this, and while we're talking, we'll be showing you some of the shots that I got just with my little cheap underwater camera. And Rob Dew also with a GoPro. We're going to be showing you some of that. But local artist and photographer joins us here. He also has put out Ask the Light, miracle cards, underwater light imagery, heart-centered inspiration, instant meditation. Really, really nice fella that I've gotten to know, Brian Leonard. He's also here with his wife out there in the studio. I started talking to him a few months ago about this, or just about a month ago. And again, everything he told me, I went and checked out with all these documents that the city acts like they don't know about, and it all turned out to be very accurate. And so, Brian, it's great to have you here. Thanks for coming in.
Nice to see you, Alex. Good to be here.
You bet. Just amazing photography of inside the Springs and the cards you've put out. Really positive stuff. I'm going to rant and rave, obviously, but you've heard everything I've said. Correct anything that may not be exactly right, because, over 2 decades, you go there every day. I see you there whenever I'm there. And then break down from your sources and everybody, because privately you told me quite a bit. You're such a nice guy, you kind of hold back. Let them have it both barrels. I mean, cutting down trees for the earth, all of this crap. Break down what we're facing with the soul of Austin.
I think the massive agenda of the master plan is what really has been incredibly offensive to anybody who really cares about the Springs. And what happened, the master plan was actually passed in 2009 under city resolution. And the first action that the master plan took was to attack the trees at the pool, threatening to cut down 80% of the trees. So now what they had going on was that they had specific trees that were kind of allocated to be chopped down based on what turned out to be a false tree study later on. But in addition to that, PARD came in and marked these 7 extra trees. Now those 7 trees, because I had been to early master plan meetings, those 7 trees actually were in the way of what their dream development was for the Springs. So even with the faulty tree plan, cutting 80% of the trees down, that wasn't enough trees. PARD came in and in addition to that, added the 7 trees. And it was really those 7 trees that gave the giveaway that this whole thing was an agenda for development to happen at the Springs. So we fought that and eventually got them to stop putting down the trees, stop the tree cutting down, excuse me. But what happened next is, the way this thing actually got through is that the master plan is supported by this group called Friends of Barton Springs. And the leadership of Friends of Barton Springs are not really friends of the Springs at all. They are the public voice checkbox so that the powers that be can just say, oh, we talked to the public, we checked it off with them. But Friends of Barton Springs, I was at all the meetings for the trees, they did nothing but support the actual cut down of the 80% of the trees there. And all the meetings I've ever gone to, Friends of Barton Springs is continually supporting development.
Sure, I mean, that's the globalist corporate UN Delphi RAND Corporation technique. They admit they have handbooks where you get a group, they call them the stakeholders,
yep.
And then it doesn't matter if the poll says, you know, 90% of Austinites don't want to pay tax money to build a sports stadium or build Formula One. They go, oh, but we have this Friends of Formula One. And they just always rubber stamp, and then they get little goodies and get to go on trips. They're like the joke lapdog, and that's what SOS has basically become, and all these other groups that are involved. And so, I mean, I've had them come over and confront me and go, it's not going to be bad. We're going to do all this and that.
Yeah.
And then the plans to build condos above it, yeah. They just want to cut down those trees so they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, they wanted to come in, and chopping down the trees would give them that big homogenized footprint. And right now, I think one of the biggest agendas that I have the most concern about in relationship to the bypass tunnel that you brought up is this new surface. They want to resurface the entire bypass tunnel, which is completely unnecessary. And by doing that, what they're doing is they refuse to use the concrete pebble aggregate that is a natural-looking surface now, and they want to use some kind of slick, modern surface with these embedded info tiles, and I believe that's so they can Disneylandify the Springs.
By the way, we talked about this. Another spring, Deep Eddy nearby, that they say is the alternate. I was there with my children just a few weeks ago, and it's slick as glass, and I thought, what is this eugenics-based government to kill us? And you said, oh, you don't know about that controversy, and it's got the mayor's name all over it. It's literally, whoever thought of a pool with a slick surface? Tell folks about that.
Oh, I think it's generous to say there were some engineering miscalculations made in that particular project. I wasn't involved in any of that. All I know is that it seems to me responsible adults who are caring about the safety of other people, especially in the area around a pool, would decide upon a surface that would be a lot more supportive when wet. Now,
but you told me about what the insiders at the city said. Can you tell them about how what they're getting ready to do? You said they have the lifeguards writing down all the people that get hurt?
Oh, no, I know for a fact. It wasn't necessarily inside information. It's just some information that's coming around is that they're taking notes and stuff at the Springs. I mean, I'm sorry, Deep Eddy. The lifeguards are taking note who falls when and where so they can kind of note where the slickest parts are. But I heard that the city's actually trying to get a record of enough injuries so that then they can sue the contractor or something like that.
When they're the one that asked for this thing in the nanny state so your feet won't get hot. And to be clear, if I can have a document cam shot right here, right over here by the diving board, there's a big oak tree right here. And because there's a tiny little 1-foot dead limb up at the top, instead of cutting it, they wanted to cut that tree down. Instead, they've put a big, giant yellow ribbon, police ribbon around it, so no one can go in the area saying trees are dangerous. So they want to cut all the trees down. We now learn so they can build stuff on it, saying trees are dangerous, they might fall on you.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how they use the nanny state for anything. Again, we need to cut all the trees down because it's for the environment, and then you get the plan, which we have. They want to build on all of it.
Yeah.
The University of Texas with Bevo crap everywhere.
Yeah.
But continue with what else they're planning there at the Springs.
Well, I think you're exactly right. That's what their agenda is. They wanted to remove the trees so that they could build whatever they want to build. And now what's going on now is this thing called the Grounds Improvement Project. The Grounds Improvement Project really is threatening to rip out the trees basically behind the diving board so that they can put ADA access ramps down to the pool. We actually fought them and got them to stop. They were going to pour a big overlook place right on the south lawn, just pouring concrete on what everybody...
Because it's already completely accessible. I've talked to handicapped folks.
In fact, what happened in June, there was a meeting, that the stakeholder meeting, where the Joint Committee had the public show up at a special meeting on the South Hill so that they could find out how the public felt about this Grounds Improvement Project. And what happened was the public was overwhelmingly against the project, including people who had relatives with disabilities were speaking out that their disabled family was already able to enjoy access to the South Hill, and we all spoke out against it. There was a subsequent meeting I was out of town for that a petition of 600 signatures was brought before the Joint Committee. They completely ignored. So the public overwhelmingly is against the Grounds Improvement Project, but how they cause the public, in my opinion, to go to sleep is that what they're proposing is that they'll move the gate to the other side of the trees. There's a row of back trees right at the end of the boundary of the park there. And so by giving the trees, they've kind of put everybody to sleep. Oh, we're getting more trees. Don't look over here while we completely rake out the trees behind the woods and put in a whole ADA ramp and pour granite and stuff, and also pour a parking lot in the back. And my concern is that with what I was saying about earlier about the proposed surface for the bypass tunnel, is that when they put that new artificial surface looking thing in there, if they do, what it is going to cause is a really aesthetic nightmare because it won't match the otherwise natural pebble aggregate that is everywhere else at the pool, on the stairs, everywhere else. So it'll be like, oh, we have to redo this thing. Let's make it all look plastic.
But again, what this story for people watching around the country is about this. It's the process of deception, where they wouldn't say they were going to close it, even though we had their own documents. Then they said, oh, no, we're not, when they were already planning it. Now they've announced it. And then now they're saying, we're not going to tell you how much of this we're going to do in these different phases. And their real plan says 11 months closure, but then they're telling the public, oh, it's only closed for 3 or 4 months, maybe. So, again, this is all about a giant power grab, and even the Austin Chronicle had to talk about how it's a boondoggle to select friends and consultants, and it's just the same story of how they can spin cutting down beautiful, healthy trees, saying it's for the earth.
Well, what they do is they propose this Grounds Improvement Project, and they have some things that sound good. But like you're saying, there's no telling what they're going to do once they actually get the permission and funding to go ahead and start making the changes at the pool. Because already where there's committees set up for public oversight, the oversight's not there. They're completely ignoring the public.
Well, I want to be clear. Let's roll some footage while he's talking.
There's no
of
telling
all the great underwater footage we've got over by the diving board and other areas. Roll some of the beautiful pool for people. Because, again, this is the tactics that they use everywhere to do this. And then I was actually lectured by friends of Barton Springs just the other day saying, this is for the earth. And I said, how is cutting trees down? He goes, they're dangerous. And he's pointing at trees that are totally healthy and beautiful that I sit under. But again, it shows how they can spin anything. It's for the earth to chop the trees down. But then I was talking to a scientist, I'll leave it at that, and she works for the city. I mean, she didn't really even say, don't say this on record, but she did say, oh, but I don't want to go too far because, the city. But, I mean, it's admitted that when they drain it down to 1 foot, it's going to kill most of the salamanders and the salamanders that are in the other side pools, like Alyssa. So it shows they don't give a damn about the salamanders that they've used to steal hundreds of thousands of private acres to build on. It's all just an excuse for them to power grab. And it's so disgusting to me that they're going to do this, and I don't know, it's just amazing.
I did find it quite controversial that they were considering allowing the epoxy, which was going to be the new surface covering the thing, when it's known to be very toxic and would have to be maintenance or replaced every 6 months. Where's all that epoxy going to go if not into the springs?
Again, they want to make it like a light bulb that breaks in a month instead of 20 years later.
Exactly.
They want to kind of medicalize it like they've done people, where it's just constantly got to be upkept. And that's what the Chronicle said. They said the word is, from insiders, and I talked to some people, they said, no, that is the plan, is they're just going to bankrupt it. Well, that's what they're saying. They're going to charge the park when they've never done it, when we already pay for all this, and they're going to raise the rates. They're just going to turn it into Disneyland so that all the damn yuppies feel good going there.
Well, that's exactly the point, and I think the current Parks Department director has a history of commercializing the parks, or has given the parks corporations a corporate responsibility, and the cities then take a percentage of what the park yields.
It's like toll roads taking over existing roads and ripping people off. They're taking over Barton Springs.
Which is what I think the grounds improvement really is about, and the kind of the gentrification or the fancification of the covering up the top of the bypass tunnel is so that they're dressing her up so they can look nice. She can look nice for the corporate client that they eventually want to rent her out to. That's my really concern about the grounds improvement project and the resurfacing of the bypass tunnel, is that it's a gentrification move in order for the city to then have a nice looking product.
By the way, it looks great. It's cool that it's old concrete and stuff.
Exactly.
But I mean, separately, the boondoggle issue. $200,000. I got the plan right here to inject concrete. They say it would make it not have the little leaks. I mean, you know, a little bit of the lawn going into the bypass tunnel, like some people document cam shot right here.
Right.
I mean, all they've got to do is inject concrete in these spots, and then that's the end of it. But no, we can't do that. No, we have to totally take it over. Now, you were telling me how you guys and the lawyer fought it. It was going to be $6 million, and that's in the news 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They were going to shut it down for even more than 11 months.
Yeah.
And $6 million to fix some holes and take over.
Yeah, there was common sense has definitely not been applied to any of this, as you know.
Oh, wait, it's common sense to give $6 million to your buddies.
Well, there you go. I mean, if you follow that line of logic, and of course then the people in the park suffer because of that type of thinking, is what's problematic around the world as well as here in Austin. But there was some people that got involved and really did, if it wasn't for the public's own involvement and looking into the engineering schematics that were the reality about the bypass tunnel, the city would have spent that over $6 million. But because of citizens' involvement and showing that that was actually inaccurate and a complete overestimate, they actually had to back off. And now it's only $2.9 million, which I haven't done the research, but I agree with you. It probably could be done for a lot less.
Well, they have an alternate plan that Rob Dew found on the city website from 2.5 years ago when they stopped it. I mean, they actually had city engineers and groups go, no, we can just fix this.
Yeah. Well, one thing for sure that I've heard, that they could fix it from the inside in a much shorter period of time without having to close the pool and without needing to resurface the surface at all. So in my opinion, the whole resurfacing thing is part of the gentrification process to redress the pool in order to sell her to a corporate client or to rent her to a corporate client eventually.
Now, again, the Chronicle says they have sources saying that. What happens at the meetings when you guys bring up, hey, you want to rent this out to corporate clients, as they're now doing other parks?
Well, that isn't really brought up that much at the meetings, but I can tell you that the meetings, when the public does bring up common concerns, they're not very well listened to. In fact, the Friends of Barton Springs is often afforded much more time to speak, and the public is, I mean, I've been yelled at for me to just shut up and stop saying what I was saying when I had to do a speech. I mean, the leader of the group was literally yelling at me to stop talking when I only went 30 seconds over my time. Whereas Friends of Barton Springs leaders talking, he comes upon his time limit, and they're looking for people to offer him more time. You know, it's not a fair. It's supposed to be. What
do the toadies get? And while we're rolling this, we have some other footage like under the diving board, and it shows some of the big fish. There's a whole bunch of footage that I want to roll for people in the background because I mean the camera really can't capture how pretty it is. My issue is they're going to basically drain it. And some of these areas are, almost 20 feet deep. I mean, that is really going to kill the wildlife. I mean, I'm not a hydrologist or a biologist that studies water life, but I mean, I know that when you drain that down to a foot, as they're going to do in the deep end to do all this, I mean, it's going to be curtains for the wildlife that's in there. But again, I guess the wildlife's an excuse to steal property. It's not really about the wildlife. It's just a set piece.
I think they do use the wildlife to they're using the environment and environmental concerns to pull in people who would otherwise be caring about the environment. This is how they got part of the public to turn away from resisting the grounds improvement projects by giving them the back row of trees. Oh, you have new trees. Don't mind the concrete that's being poured everywhere. It's to restore her to her rightful glory.
That's a quote.
That's Friends of Barton Springs' motto. They're the ones, the main group who supported
the idea that it's broken. It's like, we're going to restore you.
Yeah, like nature needs our help because she's not doing okay as she is. So we're going to pour some concrete here to make it more accessible for people. You know, I'm all into access, but that's there, and it really.
It's an excuse. It's a power grab. What type of goodies do the minions get for being the puppets they hold up at City Council? You know,
Alex, I've asked myself that question, and I've tried to figure it out, and I think they're kind of their egos are so weak that they actually a pat on the back from the big dog is sometimes enough for a person to betray their community, and that's certainly what I've seen. I don't think there's necessarily any Swiss bank accounts when the people are just like voting along. There's a lot of pressure.
Sure, not down at the useful idiot level, but it is banks and bank accounts up higher.
There's money going through people's hands.
My God. Tell folks, you told me about the lawyer and who stopped the $6 million deal.
Yeah. Well, he did some research, and he found out that there was, that it was completely unnecessary. He went and found the actual original blueprints and found out that what they were proposing was actually unnecessary because they were saying originally that if they didn't put this giant 3-foot tall by 3 feet wide concrete wall and then anchor the existing bypass tunnel to that wall, they were saying that the bypass tunnel would just flip over and float into the pool. I mean, it was ridiculous.
And they're still pushing that. It's kind of like that congressman that said that islands float.
Yeah. Whereas the engineers that actually when he had engineers look at the original blueprints, says that's impossible. There's rock, there's rock, there's rock. This thing's not going to float away. But that was part of the justification they were using to come in there and really pour a huge lot of concrete on that side of the pool. Again, they use any excuse to over-exaggerate the contract so that the Friends can make money, but at the same time, so they can gentrify the pool and support their agenda of fancifying it. And what I believe is that they want Disneyland there so that they can rent it to their corporate.
Well, previously, let's show it 100 years ago, it was Disneyland in private, and then it became a park. So we'll show some of those black and white photos. So it's now going to basically revert back to a donkey jumping off a high dive into a bucket.
Perhaps that's what Friends of Barton Springs means when they say to restore her to her rightful glory. They want a circus.
Well, they used to have a circus there and a deep end. Did you know that they even had mules jumping off diving boards and stuff? I didn't know that until I did research.
I had no idea.
Well, I guess that's the rightful glory.
Yeah, rightful glory is a strange thing if that's the case.
Well, it's definitely pretty amazing that all of this is going on. And the nanny state made them take out the big diving board. That diving board was there when my mother was a child.
I know. I wish it was still there.
I've had Friends of Barton Springs people walk over and go, even if I'm talking to a lifeguard about it, I mean, as you know, most of the crew, the people, the city people, they're on our side. They know the truth.
Yeah.
The low-level folks. But don't let me put words in your mouth. I want your view on that. But they've all told me, I'll be quietly talking to a lifeguard, going, yeah, they're going to close it the middle of next month. Yeah, we heard that, but they won't tell us. Oh, no, it's in the document. Just check it online, which they now admit. And a guy will walk over and go, I'm Friends of Barton Springs. They're up there all the time.
Yeah.
And who are you? And how long have you been around here? And I'm like, well, my family, founded Travis County, basically. And they're like, oh, well, still doesn't matter, And it's not that I play that card on people. It's just when they go, how long have you been to this pool? What do you know about it? It's just bizarre, their attitude.
Yeah, I think when you know that you're being that deceptive and basically betraying the population that you're supposed to support, you're naturally going to be defensive. But again, all I've ever seen them do at the meetings, and I've been to many, many of the meetings, is support whatever development it is. Even if we actually got them to stop. They were going to put these 12-foot tall by 6-foot wide, huge columns, 2 columns like that.
I saw it. It looked like Disneyland.
Yeah, giant columns. Friends of Barton Springs, we'd like the committee to go ahead with this, approve, no matter what it is. It doesn't matter what the architects throw on the table. Friends of Barton Springs is always there to check the box and say, public voice approves this.
Well, let me tell this story.
Public voice does not approve it because there's a majority voice that are not, at this moment, in favor of the current grounds improvement project. There's over 1,100 people signed this petition that I put out to get this grounds improvement project to stop so that the committees can do what they're designed to do, is listen to the voice of the public instead of go ahead with this continuing development agenda.
You're right. And again, this GoPro does not do justice, ladies and gentlemen, to how pretty it is. But
no, it's so beautiful there.
I mean, and there's all those little valleys and things. You can swim around. There's eels. It's despicable because anything good, they're going to take it over. And the establishment environmentalist, I was at Hamilton Pool, a collapsed cenote, for those that don't know, outside Austin, one of the top pools in the country. And I was there when an environmental group was there openly hissing that humans shouldn't be allowed to be here, only their group. And that's what they've done all over the world. They come and shut things down, and then only select groups are allowed in. Most of the Hawaiian Island chain now, there's dozens of them, it's shut off only to these groups, and then it's these high-priced tours. It's really the rich elite, the Rockefeller Foundation and others. They want this stuff shut down to the general public. And it's just despicable. I mean, we already have so few green spaces, and here we are in Austin. In fact, we did a report on that a few months ago where they bought tens of thousands of acres and have put fences up around it and don't let the neighborhoods go in and use it as parks, and they admit because they don't want you to get used to using it because they're going to give it to developers. What was that area outside town you guys went to and interviewed the former county commissioner? It was John Bound we sent out to that. That's one of our reports. I mean, it's just incredible how they have scrambled all of this.
Well, the thing that's been most exciting for me, being on the ground at what's happening in Barton Springs, is that the Friends of Barton Springs have continually acted like the pool is their own private pool. Same kind of attitude you're talking about.
They're like, hey, who are you, man?
It's their private pool. And the way I got invited into that kind of the backdoor meetings before the master plan was ever originally approved by the city council, I went to city council to complain because in 2008 there were a lot of floods in Austin. And it was taking like 2 weeks for them to reopen the pool. I'm a swimmer. I want to swim every day. So I went down there with my camera. The lifeguards just sitting around. Nothing happening. They can open the pool in sometimes as quick as 3 days if it's a minor flood. Anyway,
no, it's a power trip. It's about training us.
I had had enough. And so I went down to council, complained about this, told them, and actually they fielded my call, and for the week you have to wait before you go in, they asked me all the questions. I was too naive. I didn't know at the time. But what they were doing, they was preparing their defense. So they already knew what I was going to say when I got there. When I got there, I complained about the situation at the pool. They called their experts up, and they, rebutted what I said and kind of defended. But what I was done, then I was approached after the meeting, and I was invited kind of into the back door. And that's how I found out about the master plan. And basically, they go, oh, we have an active voice here, somebody who has an active voice. Let's invite him in and let him choose the color of the bathroom tile that we're going to put in. And I found out, to my surprise, a lot of people really go for that. So
well, no, it's the reflected glory. It's the reflected glory. It's the power trip of feeling like you have a seat at the table, even though government people and corporations literally call them useful idiots. That's a Lenin term. They are known as chumps. They are known as jokes. And they've taken everything over. They're going to take this over if we don't stop them. I mean, like we were talking about, that one question that you never got to. What is the feeling of the employees that work there, the lifeguards, the city employees? I mean, what response have you gotten?
I mean, my feeling, and these guys remain pretty quiet because, they work there. But my feeling is that most of them agree with, it's really hard to say because Friends of Barton Springs has clouded the water with its kind of...
Everybody I've talked to says they agree we're right.
Yeah, well, the grounds improvement I don't think is going to make many people happy at all. I mean, there's a very small group of people, the Friends of Barton Springs, and a few people that they've convinced that their way of thinking is correct. And then, like, I have that petition was over 1,100 people. I think that represents probably 100,000 people if those people got all their friends to sign. People are against the grounds improvement project, and I think that would probably include the staff.
We could just give the developers $2.9 million as a ransom, and then they could just keep the money and not do the work. But I guess they just come back again later, though.
They find another way in. And the way that's really upsetting is that the way they get in is because a localized group is willing to betray the desires of the community and then sell that as the public voice to the powers that be. Yeah, our stakeholder, Friends of Barton Springs, they agree with this. Exactly. That's what I've seen happen over and over and over again. And in fact, if that wasn't happening, if the Friends of Barton Springs had not been used to create and support the master plan, and the development that is in the master plan would not be threatening the Springs right now.
Well, let's be clear. They won't say how far they're going to go in the master plan. Correct me if I'm wrong. The city's set to vote once it's closed on other stuff. So they're just going to get it closed and then do whatever they want, because I was there about a month ago swimming at about 8 a.m. I was swimming 2 miles that morning. And I'm literally swimming along, and I don't normally have these type of thoughts. And I said, they're going to have TSA here sticking their hands on our pants or something. Government's ruining everything everywhere. And I said, I just can't believe it's still, old-fashioned good. And I had this bad, and then I look up and like 12 bureaucrats are there, people with hard hats. So I get out, I walk over, I start listening, and they're on the sidewalk on the little side ramp, you know, where it's got a raised little wall by the grass. They have out these plans, and they're going, this plan will take 11 months, this plan 9 months. There's no way we're going to get this done by March. And I go, excuse me, what are you guys doing? We're looking at a mermaid over the water. It's actually what they said, like I was an idiot. I was like, oh, mermaid in the water. You know, here's a scum citizen asking a question. Yeah, exactly. We're looking at a mermaid, little man. What are you doing asking our questions? They're all, we're going to do this. And they're like, look, see that little hole? We got to fill that. Yeah. But I was hearing them all admit, they were talking about 11 months. Right. Then I'm like, oh, really? How long is it closed? Oh, we don't know there, Sonny. Yeah. Literally. Yeah, well, we don't know there, and I just heard them say 11 months. So what's going to happen when they don't open this in March or April, like they say? Because they've got the fine print saying it may be longer. Yeah, it may be longer. And I was there the other day when they were... You swim year-round here, folks don't know, because it's constant spring water temp. Yeah, absolutely. I swim all the time. And they were there the other day, and the people who was kind of the city public relation person about the bypass tunnel project was just given a lot of language that suggested it was not going to be finished by March, which is what they're saying. So we definitely don't know. And one thing they kind of are very articulate about doing is making sure that the public doesn't know. And that's how they keep the resistance down. That's what's going on. Yeah, and they get off on such power trips when these friends of Barton Springs come over. I go, so how long is it really closed? And they go, they just, ooh, I know, and you don't, you scum American. I'm in with the government. They pat me on the head. And again, this is a microcosm of the entire country. Austin is the model of this. Yeah, I'm afraid you might be right. I really hope. Oh, no. I mean, we had the earlier report. The UN says we are the model of the entire world of how to take over towns and cities. And as long as they say it's the UN, well, that must be liberal. Well, I know here with the stakeholder group of Friends of Barton Springs, it has definitely supported some really disturbing type of developments at what is known by anybody you ask. Barton Springs is the soul of Austin. Everybody knows that. It's the jewel of the Parks Department, yet the Parks Department won't take care of it. And now they just want to put development. They say, oh, we're finally taking care of it. Don't stop the master plan. We're finally taking care of the springs. Well, I don't think that taking care of the springs includes paving the hillside and making all the kind of developmental changes that they keep wanting to push. Now, these are only the short-term plans, and we've had to fight. The short-term plans have already, you know, suggested this level of development, but they have long-term plans could completely reface the pool. They want to move the entrance, not to the cool entrance where it is now, but the giant rotunda, which opens to nothing when you walk through. No. They're going to turn it into a Disneyland with biometric scanning and a metal detector and a grope down. I mean, you're going to have a TSA style person. They're going to ruin it. They will. It's their religion. Well, I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but I mean, we talked about these people. Their archetype, their religion is hijacking things, and anything people like, they got to run it. It seems strange. I don't exactly understand the agenda, but I do see more than I would like to see, and I can tell you that being involved like I have since 2008, that I've learned more about the internal workings of city politics, which easily reflect the national and international stage. I've learned more than I've ever wanted to know about what people do and why, and what the agenda really is, and how people can take something that's so precious to the entire population and make it their own little pet project for the smallest amount of gain. It really upsets me. Well, it's disgusting, and again, we're going to get this report out to everybody. I hope people all over the country will check out what's happening in their area as well, because, again, this is happening all over the place, and they're trying to make the national parks more and more inaccessible. They are just trying to do everything they can to power grab under the guise of the environment. Well, that's what I've seen happening here. The development just wants to push through, and of course, again, the motto that I never can get out of my head: to restore the springs to her rightful glory. They wanted to chop down the trees and now pave concrete on the South Hill, rip out the trees behind the diving board, all in the name of restoring the springs to her rightful glory. And I want to know how nature can be more glorious than she already is. And charge to park. Exactly. Well, they're going to start charging on the backside once they pour what I heard is going to be impervious cover right there at the springs. They're not. That's even for the earth. Yeah, well, they're not even. They only take the property with impervious cover. It's an excuse to get property. Yeah. But then I wouldn't be surprised if they don't, you know, dump uranium in the pool or something, knowing them. I mean, it's like that's what they do.
Well, they're a very destructive force, and it would be nice to see
Listen,
them
my wife
outside
worked for PETA.
Yeah.
Okay, and she got up into the inner circle. They were eating T-bone steaks. She said, "Hey, I really care about animals. This is a cult." And she told me this stuff when she got offered a big book deal when she was just my girlfriend 14 years ago. And I said, "Don't take the book deal. This is too crazy."
Yeah.
The stuff she told me, and then later, off of the book deal memorandum she did with a major publisher, they went and found investigators, went and did it themselves, and never paid us, which was fine because we didn't want the money. But she was telling me stuff, and I knew she wasn't lying, but it was so crazy that I said, no one's going to believe this. It's all the stuff that came out about PETA. I mean, it was amazing. Just everything they said they were, it was the opposite. And I'm telling you, that's what these people are. It's a big joke to them. Of course they're going to cut all the trees down and pour concrete.
Yeah.
While they take somebody's farm 30 miles away, saying it's for the earth because they can't have a barn on it. And then they turn around and build a shopping mall on it. That's what this joke is.
Yeah.
I've been to smart growth conferences. They laugh at you. It's Bank of America, major developers, Michael Dell. It's a joke. It's an excuse to enslave you.
I've seen them use excuses to do a lot of things that the people are against. And I see it right here at the local level. The people are against this project. They don't want it to happen, yet they're forging ahead. It's still coming to council vote. I hope maybe perhaps the council will get some common sense, perhaps change their agenda, maybe wake up and listen to the people for a change.
I don't think so, because that's why they're keeping it all quiet.
Well, that's what they do. I mean, and even with the meetings I was going to with the trees, and when the people start to have momentum, what they do is they change the location and the time of the meeting that very day of the meeting. So you get to the building, the people who are hard to mobilize anyway finally show up at the building where the meeting's supposed to be, and oh, there's a little tape on the building. Here's some remote address nobody's even familiar with. That's where the meeting is tonight. So as soon as the public gains any momentum, they start playing all these games to continue to allow the public not to participate.
Yeah, and that's what this is about. It's Agenda 21. It's the Globalists in Action. In studio guest Brian Leonard, oceanlightarts.com, oceanlightarts.com. Be sure and check that out. Beautiful photos inside the spring.
Thank you.
Man, I tell you, I've been ranting and raving here. Any other points you'd like to make that we forgot to cover?
You know, my whole feeling about it really is that for me, the thing that has bothered me the most is that the small organization, Friends of Barton Springs, has acted like they're the ones who care about the Springs the most, and they don't. They were the guys who most supported. They were the only supportive voice during when they wanted to do the tree slaughter. And then as soon as the trees were saved, the Friends of Barton Springs showed up as the new tree stewards, and for weekends and weekends on end, had their booths out there saying, oh, we're the tree stewards, we're the tree stewards. But they've done nothing but support development at Springs, and they've done nothing to support the life of the trees at the Springs. So for me, it really is, I want the public to get more involved and maybe just make your way down there to council. I found that they do actually listen if you can show up with some presence, and that's what I would like to encourage the public to do, because without it, they're just going to forge ahead with this agenda.
Brian Leonard, thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you, Alex.
I guess I won't, when they close it next month, if it's 11 months or longer, I won't get to see you.
Well, hopefully I see you down there tomorrow morning swimming.
Yeah, well, we'll probably show it'll be all the weird UT alumni people, and we won't be allowed to be there. They'll be having a tailgating party, have a jumbotron over the...
Well, if it gets to that way, I'm breaking in. I'll sneak in.
I was actually thinking about that. We just climbed the fence.
Yeah,
they'll call us terrorists on the news, though.
Yeah, it's a possibility.
Oh, man, I tell you, these people will ruin anything. I can't even fly with my kids now because this TSA will try to grope them. I mean, they'll just ruin anything good these people will ruin. Thank you so much, sir.
All right, man, I appreciate it.
We're going to end the show here. I'll see you and your wife out. I want to thank you for coming in tonight.
Sure.
Folks, that is it for this extensive edition of InfoWars Nightly News. You know, we covered all of the domestication of the population with the Obama phones and, you know, the so-called free this and that. There is no free lunch. This is all about control. And we've covered what's happening at Barton Springs, which I'm sorry, if, you know, you're coming here next spring or summer from out of town to see it, you ain't getting in. It's probably still going to be closed. Because a pack of scum took it over. Or hopefully putting enough pressure on this, they won't, and they'll actually open it up next spring. Then they'll say, you fearmonger, see, it was never going to be shut. Doesn't matter if their own plan says 11 months. Doesn't matter if I saw the engineers with the stuff out. You know, it's just incredible how much tyranny we've got, because control freaks that crave power, well, they're motivated and we're not. So it's time to get motivated, like Brian Leonard was just saying. because he's just a private guy. He didn't really want to come on the air, but he's informed. So I said, hey, come down here and talk about what you've experienced the last 20 years with Barton Springs that you've been swimming in it. You know, my mother's been swimming there since she was a baby. But I don't know how long, because UT's involved in this. I'm not just attacking Bevo and all that. UT's the prime group behind it, which isn't even a university. It's a mafia front group that owns sports teams, you name it. It's just amazing. Okay, we are out of time. Again, if you're watching this video in Austin, show it to your friends and family and get involved. But if you're watching it somewhere else, again, this is happening in your area. Go investigate, you'll find it. Because there's so much to be stolen and fed off of in the public trough. And anything that's loved and admired, people are going to want to take it over so that they can use it for their own selfish ego purposes instead of just wanting to swim in it. See, we just want to swim in it and have it happy and good. They want to take it over and turn it into Disney World, as they do everything, or Times Square. Okay, that's it for this edition. Great job to the crew. Don't forget to support free speech. Web 2.0, that's Infowars.com, but print 2.0 is Infowars Magazine, the technocratic police state takeover issue. Subscriptions, shipping's included for a yearly subscription. It's at cost at InfoWarsStore.com. But don't forget, if you're watching this show later out there on the web and don't even believe the info we're putting out, but believe in free speech and alternative media, be sure and get a $5.95 membership monthly to prisonplanet.tv or InfoWarsNews.com. And it's really one membership of 6 memberships there at prisonplanet.tv. And it's your support that has allowed all this to grow and flourish. So, again, I want to thank you all for your support. Until Sunday, 4 to 6 with the Sunday show, and until Monday with the radio show and the weeknight news show, have a great weekend and be safe. God bless.